In the larger landscape of psychedelics, 5-MeO-MALT and 5-MeO-DMT are really strongly together. They are very similar in very many ways, most of which is that they are very clear, there's a lot of clarity to them, they connect you to breakthrough levels of love, and it's a very white light type of energy. At least that's the similarities for me. But today we're going to talk about the differences because that's a point of interest for many entheogen enthusiasts. So first of all, let's look at perhaps the most promising to many people aspect of 5-MeO-MALT, which is the nausea. And indeed, I can report that as long as your stomach is empty and you haven't eaten for, let's say, 3 hours before your experience, 5-MeO-MALT gives you absolutely zero nausea. But having said that, I really want everyone to know that I've experimented with ginger, and if you take ginger half an hour before doing 5-MeO-DMT, you should have absolutely zero nausea as well, and the ginger gives a really warm, glowing feeling to the whole 5-MeO-DMT experience. So in my mind, both the MALT and DMT, 5-MeO-DMT, have zero nausea. Now, as for the strength of these substances, if you take a similar dosage, they should have subjectively very similar peaks. However, 5-MeO-MALT lasts much longer, anywhere from 2 to 2.5 hours, whereas 5-MeO-DMT is more like 30 to 40 minutes. Also, having said that, 5-MeO-DMT, sort of after 1 or 2 hours, the experience is completely over, but with 5-MeO-MALT, there's a really long tail, and up to 8 hours afterwards, I have increased visuals, but also at the same time, I feel a little bit drowsy or a little bit hungover. As another after effect, 5-MeO-MALT, even for a few days afterwards, tends to give me a warm, glowing, nice feeling in the body, whereas 5-MeO-DMT makes me feel a little bit less warm, more subdued, not feeling bad, but not feeling vibrant either. So that's more of the objective differences between the two, but now let's get into just more subjective experiences. How do they differ in perception? And this is just my experience, which is a sample size of 1. I would be really interested, and other people would be interested if you share your experiences in the comments. What did you find different between the two? But my little analogy for how the 5-MeO-DMT and 5-MeO-MALT differ is that 5-MeO-DMT is more hard and more gong-like, more masculine, you could say. And it is kind of like this anvil. It's like laying on this anvil, and then when you take the substance, a metaphorical hammer hits you and you ring into this breakthrough state of consciousness, and it dissolves you through this sort of ringing action. It's more masculine, clear, piercing type of experience, for me at least. 5-MeO-MALT, on the other hand, is more like this nice container. You can imagine that there might be some sort of a magical milk inside of this, and when you take the substance, it's like pouring this onto your tongue, and when it touches your tongue, you dissolve away. It's more of a dissolving, flowy, feminine type of experience. Another way you can think of either substances is like 5-MeO-DMT is like sitting in a giant bell and someone ringing the bell, and as the bell rings, you dissolve, you ring away. Or 5-MeO-MALT is like jumping in a really strong, deep flowing river, and when you jump into the river, you dissolve into the rapids itself. So that's my little analogy. It's quite abstract, obviously, but that's the best I can do to explain on a subjective level how do the two differ. Visuals also, that's very subjective. I imagine lots of people are going to have a lot of different visuals, but for me, 5-MeO-DMT is definitely less visual, but when I do have visuals, it tends to be very cosmic in nature. I might see the sun or warm type of experiences. Whereas 5-MeO-MALT gives me visuals that are more angelic in nature. It's like seeing angels or devas or light beings a lot of the time. And the visual I keep seeing very many times on 5-MeO-MALT is sort of these praying hands that just appear right where the point of focus is. So Those are my visuals that I keep getting, but I'd be very interested to hear what sort of other visuals other people have. Genuinely, I really want to know what you guys see on 5-MeO-MALT and 5-MeO-DMT. But I think it's worth mentioning that for both of these substances, I cannot remember ever having any ugly visuals. All the visuals seem to be very beautiful, very nice, which is in contrast to like maybe LSD or mushrooms, where you can have beautiful or really horrific visuals. The visuals on both of these substances seem to be almost exclusively beautiful, at least for me. Now, for a more specific difference between these two substances, something that's maybe more interesting to people who want to sit in meditation like myself. I really like to sit in meditation when taking an entheogen and perhaps do breathing exercises or mantra exercises or asana exercises. But it's nice to be able to sit in meditation with a straight up spine. For me, when doing 5-MeO-DMT, I usually fail to stay in a posture, and it's like riding a bucking bull where eventually all these energies throw me off and then I yield and lay on the bed in a symmetrical fashion. And that's fantastic because when you're laying on the bed, you can really release into the energy. But a lot of the times I would prefer to sit with a straight spine in posture. And for whatever reason, 5-MeO-MALT, doesn't matter how strong the experience really is, I find it quite easy to just keep sitting in posture and do whatever technique I want to be doing for that time. So for that reason, that's a strong plus in my book for 5-MeO-MALT, just for the reason that it's easy to stay in posture and actually meditate, do spiritual techniques which you have honed and practiced in sober meditation. Now, just to quickly talk about the suitability of each substance. What can each be used for more appropriately? So in my humble opinion, 5-MeO-MALT is perfect, really perfect if you want to work on raising your baseline of consciousness and purifying the karma from your energy system, from your nervous system. 5-MeO-MALT is fantastic for that. However, if you're more interested in reaching peaks of consciousness and just being really blown away at a deep spiritual state, then I would recommend 5-MeO-DMT for the simple fact that it lasts less time, so you can reach a higher peak and come back sooner. Whereas with MALT, if you reach a really high state, you have to actually stay there and integrate really a lot of information. So 5-MeO-DMT might be more suitable for peak experiences, and 5-MeO-MALT for long-term moderate doses of purifying the nervous system. That's how I perceive the two at the moment. Now, you might ask which is more effective or which should you try and get first. My honest opinion on that is that these two substances are very complementary. If you can, use both. My sort of desire at the moment is to use 80% MALT and 20% of the time use 5-MeO-DMT. They are both, like I mentioned, fantastic, beautiful, godly substances. I really respect both of them, but just for the purifying effects of 5-MeO-MALT, I prefer that substance to use that more regularly. But 5-MeO-DMT has a different quality to it, so it's nice to go there every now and then. And the experiences of the two really honestly do seem to just melt together, blend together, complement each other very, very well.